Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today I'm going to discuss a few things that we normally avoid talking about on the main channel, mostly because it's stuff that we don't really want to get bogged down by. But as the AMD and Intel battle continues to heat up, and perhaps we'll see the same thing between AMD and Nvidia soon, I felt there were a few things that we probably should address. Recently, I revisited the Core i5 7600K and Ryzen 5 1600, and in that video I focused on gaming performance, looking at newly released titles, and the results were interesting. Whereas the 7600K once ran rings around the Ryzen processor, today it struggles in a number of titles. For the most part, that content was well received. The video has a healthy like to dislike ratio, and generally speaking the feedback was excellent. However, as always, with these comparisons, there was those that got a bit upset, believing AMD had paid for the content to be produced. You know, the usual shill comments and all that noise. I know you guys often say things like, Steve, you don't need to explain yourself, we trust you, and your work speaks for itself. And yeah, I really do appreciate that, but we still like to address this sort of stuff from time to time. That said, on the main channel, we don't usually talk about the goings on in the industry too much, and that's because it's either taken the wrong way or it just creates too much drama. Obviously, we exposed the Intel Principled Technologies fiasco, and we were the first to do so, closely followed by our good friends over at Gamers Nexus, who created some excellent content on that subject as well. We've been hard but fair on Nvidia recently, with their strange sampling behavior and silliness with drivers. But that's all stuff that affects you more directly. Obviously, you'll see misleading paid-for benchmarks, and you'll also notice when certain media outlets who normally provide day one reviews don't. The things we don't really talk about is the stuff that we're often accused of, like paid reviews, which we know happen in this industry, but obviously we don't take part in them. As an example, we were approached late last year to put together some paid Intel reviews, not by Intel directly, but rather a marketing agency that represents them. It's possible the agencies are being used as a scapegoat when doing this sort of thing, but who knows if Intel's even aware. We certainly don't have evidence that they are. Anyway, we declined the lucrative offer without getting too much information, but we know the most recent example was for paid Core i7 7980XE and Optane reviews, and sadly we know a few YouTubers did take them up on the offer. Thankfully though, they did disclose the sponsorship, though I'm not entirely sure viewers knew exactly what they were watching and what the requirements set by the marketing agency were. Basically, all the paid offers that we've come across have conditions such as you can't talk about competing products. In fact, you can't mention competing brands at all. In the case of the 7980XE content, there was to be no mention of Threadripper or AMD. You can't say anything negative about the product, and it suggested that any potential negatives, such as high price tags, should be justified to the audience. The reviews usually need to be submitted for approval to make sure they're projecting the right message. These companies aren't after lukewarm recommendations, so you won't get a well-balanced conclusion that notes, the cons and pros. Rather, the message is buy this because, well, just insert some reasons, and that makes paid reviews pretty obvious to spot. Now, don't mistake positive reviews as paid reviews. Rather look for reviews that omit obvious flaws and act like the product or brand has no competition worth mentioning. Now, we'll just say this level of scrutiny for a pre-roll ad is fine, as that is obviously paid advertising and very different from a paid review. That said, we still do our best to vet advertisers, and because of that, we do knock back something like 10 times more offers than we actually accept. On that note, Hardware Canucks put out a tweet earlier this month talking about this very issue. Basically, they were concerned by the large volume of paid review requests, or offers, I suppose. They weren't requesting to do paid reviews, just to make that clear. There was companies offering to pay them for reviews. So hopefully that makes that clear. And they were quite alarmed by this, as it suggests it's common practice for these companies to pay for reviews. It was good to see a major player in the tech YouTube space shedding some light on this issue. And I should just also mention that I know others such as Gamers Nexus have also talked about this problem on occasion as well, so hats off to them. To date, we've only discussed this issue with our Patreon members on the monthly live streams, and quite a few members have been pushing us to bring this issue to the main channel. Now, I don't expect this information to change too much, but it is our hope that the more we can educate viewers about these issues, the less likely they are to occur. It's probably also worth keeping in mind for some viewers, spitting the dummy over opinions that you don't necessarily agree with and screaming shill doesn't help. In fact, all it does is dilute the issue and help those who are really lining their pockets with dirty review money get away with it. The good news is, I believe that the vast majority of tech media on YouTube do provide honest reviews, at least those focused on core PC hardware, the kind of content that we create. I can't really speak for other tech type media, such as guys that cover gadgets or mobile phones, because I don't really follow those channels and I don't know too much about them. But I really do feel for the type of tech we look at, media coverage has never been better. And I've been doing this as a full-time job now for almost 20 years. I'm sure there are some that'll disagree, claiming something along the lines that YouTube influencers just cash in when and where they can, and tech journalism is dead. But stop and think for a moment. Last year, Nvidia tried to pull one of their dirtiest tactics yet, and ice AMD out of the GPU space with their GeForce Partner Program. HardOCP, a once well-respected tech site, and I guess they are still well respected to this day. The site's just no longer in operation. Anyway, HardOCP first broke the news on Nvidia's GPP plans. It was some great work by Kyle and the gang, but I feel 10 years ago it would have gone largely unnoticed. Nvidia would have steamed ahead with their plans and gamers would have suffered. Today though, I believe largely thanks to YouTube, there's a much wider audience for PC tech content. With so many big channels reporting on the GeForce Partner Program, Nvidia simply couldn't get away with playing dirty, and the program was quickly scrapped to avoid major blowback. This was a massive win for PC gamers everywhere, and honestly, based on what these companies have gotten away with in the past, I really didn't think it would happen. And despite the GPP win, shortly after that fiasco, we got another one from Intel with Principled Technologies. This came a week or so before the embargo was set to be lifted on independent third-party reviews, but we dealt with that one quite swiftly, and thankfully everyone else piled on to help stop yet another dirty tactic. For the most part, AMD's been pretty clear of any drama recently. We did stomp on them for the misleading Radeon RX 560 branding, which saw RX 460s become 560s, but they did address that quickly, pleading it was a misunderstanding with retailers. It was certainly nothing like the Principled Technologies Report, or GPP, but you can rest assured if AMD pull any crap like that, we'll be all over it. So by now, most of you know we review products individually on their own merit. I don't consider if it's an AMD, Intel or Nvidia product, or any other brand for that matter, a brand really has no bearing on the review. What I do focus on quite heavily, actually very heavily, is value, even for high-end products. In my mind, they still have to make sense. For example, the Core i9 1900K is technically a better product than the Ryzen 7 2700X, and I've said so in the past, so I certainly don't deny that. However, I'd never buy the Core i9 processor for $500 US when you can get the Ryzen 7 2700X for just $280, or the non-X model for half the price of the Core i9. I simply can't justify spending around 70% more for the Intel CPU, especially when you still have to buy a cooler on top of that, so realistically you're looking at around another $100 to get the most out of the Core i9. Now, if you don't agree with us weighing our reviews so heavily towards value, then that's fine. But it doesn't make us wrong. It just means we might not be the review outlet for you. I certainly won't argue with you if you declare the 9900K as the best desktop CPU because it's the fastest and you don't care about anything else other than performance. That's fine, but as I said, that's not how we evaluate products. And this is why I concluded my 9900K review by saying the Core i7 8700K is still the best gaming CPU. For almost a 50% increase in price, you're looking at maybe a 5% increase in performance, assuming you don't game at 4K. I should also mention that AMD has never once approached us for paid reviews. Not AMD or some sort of marketing agency acting on their behalf. So in all my years, that's never happened once, directly or indirectly. They have done the occasional promotion, not with us. We don't take money from AMD or Intel, but as an example, they have done ad deals with tech sites and other YouTubers for their game bundles. So obviously there's no problem with them doing that. Same thing with Intel if they wanted to run some pre-roll ads to promote their products or even sponsor build videos. In our opinion, that's fine. Again, we don't do either of those things, but I have zero issue with other media taking up such offers. It's really just the paid product reviews that are the issue. So next time, before accusing someone of being a shill when you see a benchmark result that you don't necessarily like or an opinion that you disagree with, ask yourself, is it really paid for content? I realize I'm only speaking to a vocal minority here, But as I said earlier, you're really making it easier for those who do accept paid reviews to get away with it. If everyone is a shill, no one is a shill. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's something to think about. Again, we don't expect this information to change too much, but based on what our Patreon members said, it seems like quite a few of you will find this information interesting and appreciate us talking about it so openly. So hopefully that is the case, and if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below and we'll do our best to answer them. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and if you appreciate the work we do at Unboxed, then consider shilling for us on Patreon. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Steve. I'll see you again next time.